know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you? And thank you for tuning in for this week's review of Wow, we've been wrestling, and of course, you know, some other wrestling news. I think we're getting ourselves back on track again. It took a little while, but it's starting to pull itself back together. So I think we can revert back to its original format. But of course, you know, the chapter markers will be still in the videos and the podcast. So if you are fortunate enough to be listening to it on a platform that will allow such a thing, you can always jump to the thing that you want to hear, or the match, or whatever review portions that you may find interesting. But of course, I'm going to encourage you to listen to the entirety of this thing, because I got a lot to get off, a lot to talk about, and it might take up a good chunk of time. So why don't we just move over into it and knock out some of these little side stories, and then we can go right off into the review, and then I will feel like I've gotten myself this train back on track, the ship steering its right course, whatever other little examples and metaphors you might want to toss in there. Everything will be right with the world. So why don't we hit that, go to the news, views, and updates. And what's happening out there? Well, we're going to try to, I don't want to say power through it, but we're going to try to get through a couple of these real quick. First thing being, well, this isn't really wrestling news related so much as it's, you know, on a personal note to Candy Crush. I know some time ago, or what's her, Amberly? I might be saying her name wrong. Amberly Shaw. Good luck to you and your dog. That's you know, just want to put my condolences isn't the right word, damn it. My well wishes to what, the dog's pudgy. My well wishes to the dog, and that everything is going smooth and he's recovering well, or she. Because listen, I having had, gosh, how many dogs did we had? Like 4. Having gone through some of those a number of times is never fun. So, you know, just my best wishes to you, your house, your dog, your mate, spouse. I don't know if you're married or not. Whomever, just the household in general, and the poor baby. As you know, we loves our animals, and I just wanted to be able to say that before we go off into the wrestling news proper, because I feel you, I understand, and I don't want to, you know, jump the gun here. So that's why I say all my best wishes. Now, I'm not really a thoughts and prayers kind of guy, because I think that's a bunch of crap that people say just to, thoughts and prayers. Anyway, but you know, the best wishes to the baby that he gets better, or she. Anyhow, we will move along and go into the proper wrestling news. And what's going on in the proper wrestling news? Well, we got some new WWE ID persons. That's right. There are some people who have, I guess, officially been signed into the WWE ID program, or got a WWE ID contract. That's probably a more accurate term. One of those being a former Wild talent, that being the, how many names has she had? The former Arianna Gambino, who wrestles as Valentina Rossi on the NWA, but quite frankly, maybe changing their name again to Gianni Capri. So that's the name that they said that she will most likely be using going forward. She's earned her WWE ID contract. Whether that moves her into a proper WWE position, time will tell. But congratulations to her, along with the Notorious Mimi, Fallon Gray. They also have been signed as well. Mimi is back using her NXT name, Sloane Jacobs. So congratulations to all those who have worked their way into the WWE through the ID program. Of course, we know Rossi, well, Valentina, we'll just go with that. We know that she has been all over the place in recent months. That included, of course, we know WOW. But she's made appearances in AEW, Ring of Honor. I guess those are pretty much one and the same at this point. Shine. She was a notable talent at NWA, one half of the women's tag team champions there. And Marvelous in Japan. She made her trip over there. So she is getting some traveling going on there. Will we see her pop up in WWE or at least their WWE programming sometime soon? Who knows? Wishing her the best. Mary Malenko has signed, or reportedly, to the WWE. That is the daughter of Dean Malenko, which would, I guess you would figure, would make her a shoe-in to get into that position. If she has anywhere near the talent that her father has, then yes, she absolutely should be there. One of the real greats as far as in-ring work goes. He wasn't a strong personality, at least not on camera. Everybody talks about, well, he's funny backstage. But some people just don't translate their personality or their funny or whatever, their charisma, in front of a camera. Some people, it's just hard for them to do that. But as far as him as an in-ring worker, great. Just finished looking at a match a couple of days ago. I wish I could remember the YouTube channel. I want to say it's JSG Wrestling. But a match I never knew took place. The British Bulldogs versus the Malenkos. Joe and Dean Malenko. I've only seen the Malenkos as a team when they were on the Clash of the Champions for the NWA Tag Team Tournament. They got eliminated the first round by Steamboat and Koloff. But all of that to say, look, is the talent, the access to somebody who can really tell her how to do it, what to do, and think about the business and all that stuff like that is there. So I would imagine, Marie Malenko, as long as they don't try to make her a clone of her father, which the WWE did a horrible job with him. So as long as they don't try to do that and they let her kind of grow into whomever she's going to be inside of the ring, then I say, hey, she's got about as good a shot as anybody else. If they're going to turn around and do what they do with a lot of people, just like, well, let's just slap this gimmick on you. Here's your new name. Here's your new gimmick. Show us some personality. If they're going to start to do that, it might be a rough road for her, but time will tell. Either way it goes, congratulations to her. The Bella Twins have confirmed a 2-year deal with the WWE. I don't think that is anywhere near shocking. In fact, within these 2 years, I'm just going to go ahead and say at some point, no matter how short it happens to be, they will win the Women's Tag Team Championship. I mean, they can have it for 2 or 3 months. I think they're just going to get it just to be able to have said that they've done it before they close the chapter on their wrestling career. The Bellas in this universe of WWE is really odd to see. Not odd that, I can't believe they're getting into wrestling. I mean, we've all seen them in a wrestling. It's almost like they're the last shred of the diva era come back to life. The only other person that really applied to, and she's not really in the ring so much as she's gotten on everybody's nerves being part of LFG Out of the Clear Blue, or the 6 Feet Under podcast Out of the Clear Blue, and becoming a Hall of Famer out of the Clear Blue. is Michelle McCool, and I liked her, Michelle McCool, but these last couple of months it probably has not done well for her overall legacy. But anyhow, it's like the Bella Twins are just remnants of a past time that have popped back up. They were never noted for being some sort of fantastic grappler or technical mastermind in the ring, or something along those lines. They were never noted for that. So to see them in this environment is a little different. I mean, they probably have to step their game up, because I don't know if they can do what they did. I mean, they might be able to get the people just to go with them because they are the Bellas and there's a legacy there. And they might be able to get their personalities across. That would probably be the strongest and safest bet for them. Because I don't know if them trying to keep up with the random teams that they have there would be the best idea for them now. But, who's to say? Coming up, we have title match presenting Ladies Night Out 16. Ladies Night Out 16. Well, first off, the Ladies Night Out series presented by Title Matches is one of the larger all-women's wrestling events that takes place. As you can see with the title, they've been doing this for quite some time now. And it has been in no small, I'm not underselling this to say it's been one of the strongest platforms for women's wrestling in the last decade or so. I don't think that's underselling to say that. Particularly when you go online and you look at them on YouTube, the women's matches that they have are almost always highly viewed matches, if not flat out highly viewed events. The people at Title Match have long done this, and they've had a who's who of talent go through those things. I mean, they may be the spiritual successor to what Shimmer had some years ago, because they were like the platform. They were the place to go if you were a female wrestler, or if you were wanting to watch women's wrestling. That was the place. And they had spawned off a lot of different names, a lot of different talents that came through those doors, including Mercedes Martinez, who's on her retirement tour now, which I hope that she at least gets to do a couple of shots, maybe in TNA before she's done. Neidhart, before she became Natalya, was there. Awesome Kong, Taylor Wilde, Angelina Love. I mean, they had a huge list. Davina Rose, who we now know as Bayley. Rebecca Knox, who we now know as Becky Lynch. There's a lot of talent that came through those doors. Title Match feels like it has become the successor to that. And almost all the time, when they have a women's match, it is, generally speaking, pretty well viewed. I mean, within a day's time, and you're talking about a product that doesn't have TV. It's not like they have television to help sell this. They don't have, some weekly wrestling program that they can turn around like, hey, go ahead and buy our stuff, download our videos, this, that. They don't have that. They've built up their market, they've worked their brand, and they've done this for a number of years, and, this is what they got. Now, of course, they do have named talent that comes in title match, and it should be noted, to be fair, title match is not just an all-female platform. It is not. They have lots of female matches, lots of women's matches in there, but it's not an all-female wrestling platform. So, some of those views that they've gotten are because you have names outside of that sphere that have driven people to that, whether that's old legends like Blackjack Mulligan or Jerry Jarrett, Bruce Pritchard, or guys like that. Because I'm sure once people get onto the page or get to wherever they happen to be, you're gonna browse around a little bit, and they probably found some matches just based on that alone. But it doesn't change the fact that they have a massive catalog. They've been doing this nonstop. And when they do have the women's wrestling matches there, they're generally speaking well viewed. So all of that to say, when they produce Ladies Night Out 16, which is largely being built off of the back of WrestleMania, because we know how WrestleMania weekend draws out all the indies. Which does make me wonder, as a side note, what are they going to do next year? If they go through with it, I mean, they might not do it now if it's a war zone. But if they go through with going over to Dubai next year for WrestleMania, what are the indie promotions going to do here? A lot of people would, a lot of promotions depend on that. They depend on them showing up so they can be able to piggyback off of that and get some shine, get some matches, get some people that, hey, I couldn't make it into WrestleMania, but look at all these 10 or 20 other wrestling promotions that's around town. I can go to one of these, or the wrestling parties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's taking place on the 16th at the HyperX Arena inside the Lexor Hotel and Casino. I wonder how big audience they'll be able to draw. And there's one thing I can say about them. Whoever's going is not just going to be randomly walking around like, hey, there's wrestling. Let me take a look and see what this is. I don't think you're going to get that. I think by and large, when you're looking at title match and the people that they have in there, those people are willing to pay their money to go and see those individuals. And if that's the case, I mean, what can you say? They still kind of sit as one of the higher platform wrestling promotions for all women that exists, even if they aren't just all women. They put on several all women shows, and they have a lot of people that are willing to pay to go see it. Do not discount that. Ronda Rousey. We know that she has a upcoming fight against another legend, Gina Carano. In the interim of that, we have seen Ronda Rousey appear on AEW television. Just after a Toni Storm match, Storm goes up to the ramp. She wallows around on the ramp for a little while, I guess. That's about the best way I can describe it. And as she's doing that, then you see Rousey get into the ring. And without saying anything, she just kind of points at her and then points down in front of herself, signaling to Toni Storm that, bring it, or come up in the ring, or whatever you want to call it. And she does, and it got a lot of buzz. It got a lot of buzz that day. But what we've now come to find out is that it doesn't appear that there's going to be any follow-up to this at all. It was just like, okay, we did that, and there you go. I'm like, really? Wow. Okay, that's a little disappointing, actually. But there you have it. She just showed up, and I'm not even sure they did much to sell the event. It's not like they ran a commercial or a trailer for it, or she got on a microphone and said, hey, by the way, I'll be doing such and such this day. Make sure you tune in to Netflix. We didn't get any of that. I mean, it looked great as far as a wrestling moment is concerned. But it was one of those disjointed things. It's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything. She wasn't going to get involved in any sort of match preceding getting into the ring with Carano anyway. I mean, I think we can all say that because just look at Cena and The Rock. Well, their handlers don't want them doing anything. And they just on a movie set. Much less another fight. Their handlers don't want them doing anything that's going to cost that because there's too much money to be losing. We don't know if you might get out there and sprain your ankle or fall wrong or do this or do that. So you knew full well that Rousey was not going to be getting in any sort of fight, not with that thing lingering around the corner. It's still got like another month. But I think the idea was that people thought that she might come back and, hey, she's going to sign up and it's going to be all elite. Well, no. At least not right now. As it is today, it does not appear that there's going to be any sort of follow-up. It's just a random thing that took place and they moved on. The fight, by the way, will be on the 16th of May. So you can check that out. I do believe that they're the main event. They of course, they got a full show. But Rousey and Carino, I believe, are the main event. So if you are so inclined, you have that to look forward to. Also taking place out there in the world on May the 31st. You still got some time. Presented by Afterglow Wrestling. Will be Wrestling is for the Dogs and Cats charity event. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and say now, as of right now, I do not know if there are any matches whatsoever announced for this. I would imagine it would have to be. But, I mean, we got Awesome Kong appearing there, Andrea the Giant, which I thought she retired some time ago. And surprisingly enough, WOW's Animal Instinct. Katarina Jinx, Goldie Collins. I find that fascinating. Largely the reason being is that, again, I don't know if this is going to be a wrestling event necessarily or not. I mean, they could, and I stress they could just have this and be an appearance / signing for everybody. Because this is being presented as, after this event is done, then you've got such and such. Again, I would imagine that it would have to be some sort of match that's going on there. I would think. But I also am a little curious as to whether Jinx and Collins will get into anybody's wrestling ring. Because I've seen them make appearances, but not necessarily step into a ring aside from a WOW ring. But if they do, who would they even be getting in the ring with? Is there anybody there that would be able to take them on? And if they do have somebody that is taking them on, are they going to need to lay the match out ahead of time, and try to get that thing memorized? Who knows? But the end result here is May the 31st. You can check them out. I think it's also being presented by Knox Pro Wrestling Entertainment Academy. So you look it up and you can try to keep up with what's going on. Maybe they'll have some more information after this has been posted. But wrestling is for the dogs and cats charity event. And I would say at this point, Kong and Animal Instinct are probably going to be the biggest names that they got there. Maybe they'll get somebody else as time goes on, but as far as exposure is concerned, those are probably the biggest names that are going to appear. Like I said, Andre the Giant was a indie, standout might be a little bit much. She was an indie name, I believe, in the Northwest or Northern California. Donica Bloodwind, not really sure about her. Kita Ray, some of those I'm a little unfamiliar with, so I cannot speak on them specifically. I just wanted to be able to pass the event along so that you could check them out if necessary. And if you're in the area, then you might be able to check them out live. This apparently takes place in Sun Valley, California. And again, you can go on to Knox Pro Wrestling, Knox Pro Entertainment Academy, and probably find out a little bit more information there. Afterglow Wrestling. Wrestling is for the number 4, the dogs and cats. So that will be something to keep your eyes out for. And lastly, I wanted to take some time to read something that took place in the WoW Reddit page. This is it's kind of touching on a topic that I had said, a few times. It's like, there's talent in WoW. We're not going to discount that anymore. There's talent there. And we all know that there's talent there. There's some people that are rookies too, but there's talent within the, the promotion or show. I'm somewhat hesitant to call it promotion at times. But despite that, WoW still somewhat struggles to address the exterior fan base of the WoW bubble. With that being said, there's a post that I wanted to take the time to kind of read through and hit on a couple of points here. This is put up by Piano-Rough. And the title of it is WoW Isn't Glow 2.0 Anymore. Which is a interesting name in and of itself. That is not Glow 2.0. I wonder how many people really look at it that way, because you probably got a couple of people who have no concept of what Glow is beyond maybe a casual mention. But let's read this post. Piano writes, for the longest time, WoW was pretty much seen as a sequel to Glow because of the David McClain connection. And there was this perception that Glow and WoW were just actresses, pretending to be pro wrestlers, with 1 or 2 ringers. But with Valentina Rossi graduating to the WWID program, AEW's Willow Nightingale, yes, that one, was once known as Eye Candy in a prior incarnation of WoW, Hollywood Haley J being kind of a female cult hero in wrestling, and a few of the WoW talents actually being indie stalwarts like BK, Killer Kate Rhythm, a lot of the WoW talent are quote-unquote real wrestlers. I'm saying this because WoW wrestling talent can be seen on the level of AEW, WWE, TNA. I don't know what this KO that he's got there for. I guess TNA's knockouts. And some wrestling fans should give WoW a try and ignore the Barbie Dreamhouse aesthetic color palette. All right. Now, there is an entire conversation that has taken place down underneath this. Okay? So it's not just me that's responding to this. This has already been responded to. In fact, one of the first people that said it here, the first response, again, not my response, the first response that's up there by May_Day, MAYY_DAYY. You're kind of arguing against your own point there, LOL. None of those women made it to that level of success at WoW. They had to leave and go to a real company. Now, he does have a comment about Tina Ferrari following that, but and it's hard to address that and not sound like you're piling onto it, but it's hard to disagree also. Yes, Piano was correct, and that WoW has legitimate talent in Israel, and I've said that they got talent there. But for the persons that he's talking about, I will agree with Mayday, is that they did not get the boost that they got from being at WoW. Like at this point, currently, we've not seen anybody leave WoW and on the basis of them being in WoW, make the big jump to something else. Like, I'm signing to WWE or I'm signing to AEW. We've not seen that. I'm sure some people would try to make the argument for it just like he did. It's like, well, you had this person here. You had Willow Nightingale, who's killing it in AEW right now, and so on and so forth. Yeah, there's a lot of people that came into there, but I would also argue that it's not like she came out of the blue, and I'm talking about Willow Nightingale, and just started up with WoW. Like, oh, okay, this is the beginning of my wrestling journey. She was already wrestling, and she was already building a name on herself. WoW was a stop along the way, but she was already doing this. And I would say the same thing with other names like Jessica Havoc, Kara Hogan, Diamante. I'm using their actual name. I mean, their indie names, not their WoW names right now. And I would say that it became a stop on the way. Whether it was intended to be that or not is a different issue. But it became a stop along the way. And none of those names, none of them got some sort of boost off of being in WoW. At least if they did, I mean, I wish somebody should point it out to me. I'm always willing to have been wrong. If you can show me that somebody got it based off of that, then fine. But I look at, let's use Nikita Lyons, for instance, because she is a name that does get brought up like, well, she was in WoW when she went. Okay, yeah, she did. And I'm sure her fight background, her time that she start learning the basics of WoW, basics of wrestling, probably did help during her tryout, but that's what it took. It was a tryout. They didn't come seeking her out. This was not like a Jade Cargill situation or Mariah May, who's now with Blake Monroe, or any other big name that they just got because, oh man, this person's free, we need to get them. Whether that be because we want to keep them away from AEW, or whether that be because they think that they're so talented that they're going to help out the show. Those have been the primary reasons that they pick people up. Ricky Starks and so on and so forth, or Saints now. But you get what I'm saying here is that those names, they didn't go through no trial. When they became free agents and they were able to be got, that's what they did. They just went in and got them. On the merit of what they've done already. If not on the merit of, we'll show them. If they couldn't make stars out of these people, we'll do it. See Danhausen. Nikita Lyons wouldn't qualify in this scenario because and it was publicly stated, she went through a tryout to get to WWE. And yes, she made it. But I would put that more on her merit rather than WoW's. And I also, until she or somebody else can tell me different. I also will stand by she probably went there and discovered all the things that she didn't know. She's, injuries aside, because I know she had a injury or two. Injuries aside, she's not really been noted as being one of their finer talent pickups. Nikita Lyons at this point is just a walking, talking thirst trap. And that's what she sells, because it works. But it also has kind of stunted her growth, I think. For as attractive as she might be, is I don't know if that's helped her within the ring. And it feels like at times that she works backwards. I shouldn't say she works backwards, but she's been positioned backwards. She went in at NXT. Then the next thing I saw is that after the injuries, she went to Evolve. Then after Evolve, she went to LFG. It's like she was working down. That's why I fully believe that she probably went there and started to realize the things that she didn't know. This isn't like how Will Wild did it. And she had to adjust to the WWE way or get left behind. But it not being Glow 2.0 anymore. I am... I don't know if it's gotten out of that shadow, at least not in my opinion. There's not really much of a difference between WoW and Glow. If you take away that WoW, and I'll say that it felt like this was a kicking and screaming thing, because when WoW was first created, it was nothing different. He just found some actresses and models and trained them up. And as the article said, and I agree, he had one or two ringers in there. And in that time, it was Selena Majors and Thug, Paisley Leather and Bambi. And they weren't enough to be able to hold up an entire promotion or entire show. And none of the girls that was training there at the time were enough to hold up an entire promotion or show. Even the entire roster of her wasn't enough for that, because they weren't ready for it. For all that they did with TV, for everything that they talked about, we got this high ratings and this, that, and the other. For all that was going on at that time, and that, I believe him when he says that when we was top rated in New York and LA. I believe that. But when they had to step into pay-per-view, it exposed them. It exposed WoW for its fan base and exposed WoW for the talent that they lacked. No one ordered the pay-per-view because those stories weren't interesting enough to make them want to order it. And no one, never mind the fact that they stuck it in the Great Western Forum. That was probably too big a platform to begin with. But no one ordered that. They weren't concerned with it. It wasn't I need to see this match. I need to see Terry Gold win the championship back. And then when they got into the pay-per-view, a lot of those matches like less than 5 minutes. It exposed a lot of people that they just could not do it. And they weren't going to get the chance to do anything different there. They had to go, that bell had to ring, and they had to deliver whatever it is they could, however inexperienced they may have happened to have been. But then we move up to more modern day WoW, because WoW has gone through 2 or 3 incarnations at this point. So we'll pick up with the most recent version. This is where I say they probably went in kicking and screaming, because I don't think that it was ever his desire to hire wrestlers. I don't think that was ever a thing. Now, if he changed his mind and he saw the light and like, well, maybe I should, then good on him. I just don't know if that was the case. But at some point, either he saw the light or somebody convinced him otherwise, or maybe a combination of the two, he started hiring wrestlers, women that can get into that place and hit the ground running. And that elevated some of it. But at the end of the day, then they just kind of got integrated into, rather than hoisting the rest of the thing up, they kind of got integrated into what WoW normally does. And here's the stuff that I wrote that it seems like settles them back into being Glow 2.0. Star power. One thing WoW has seemingly lacked for years is star power. It feels like they've always gone out of their way to try to keep everything even and balanced amongst the roster, and no one is really exceptionally more over than the next. I mean, just look at the roster right now. Like, who, aside from the heels, I don't know what it is about them and their heels, but they will put their heels in every possible situation where they can get some shine that they can possibly be. I mean, whether that's being interviewed, whether that's showing them in the Vanity, what are the, not Vanity Fair, what are the little magazine / website deal? Where is that? Whether they appear on somebody's news channel. I mean, whether they the International Women's Day deal. Go find that poster. And you tell me where all the baby faces are in that thing. International Women's Day. There's both of them. There's two different posters. And front row, if not the front 2 rows of that, are all heels. I was like, I don't understand it. I don't know why they go out of their way to be like, oh, just heels, 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 heels. But they're there. And they always are there. But they don't. But aside from that, I mean, aside from them being featured, they still don't have star power. There's no one there, heel or babyface, that has been positioned to a point where you would say, all right, these people want to pay their money to see this person. You can say that about other wrestling companies. You can say that about a Cody Rhodes. You can say that about a CM Punk. You can say that about a Roman Reigns. You can say that about a Rhea Ripley. You can say that about a Charlotte Flair. You can say that about some of these other people that's out there because they've been positioned as such. They've been positioned to be on top and the top of their division. I never got that impression with WoW. Never. It always just felt like keep everybody the same. Ticket sales. Much like Glow, they don't do ticket sales. I mean, you can get tickets in much the same way you can get tickets at the Late Show or the Tonight Show. Contact them and they'll give you tickets. You're not really investing yourself when you do that. And that's one thing that they share. That Glow and WoW share those traits also. Views online. That's probably going to be one of their stronger suits. One thing that you can say is that they have a fan base that's online and is willing to watch their videos wherever that video happens to be. But they was also willing to watch Glow. Glow had a pretty, there was no YouTube at the time, but they had a pretty good viewership. And I would say WoW probably has a reasonable viewership. I just don't think it's the viewership that everybody believes that it is. One thing that they've held on to for the last 3 years, WoW's fan base. I cannot say that WoW management has repeated this all that much. But one thing that the fan base has held on to when they want to try to justify that WoW is a player in the wrestling landscape is like, well, they got equally as good ratings as TNA or, something like that. I was like, well, they might have had that at one point, and I won't deny that. I've seen the ratings initially, but once they stopped and they were no longer putting them out there anymore, those ratings were declining. So unless they had some sort of swift turnaround, I can't imagine why it would be viewed as like, oh, well, you know, they're getting just as noted. By the metrics that we know, they're not. They're not getting that. That's not necessarily an indictment of talent or production. It's an indictment of direction and creative. But the rest of that is like they can't really control that. They can only control what they're doing once they're in the ring. Same rules apply for views of pay-per-views and PLEs. They don't have them. So you don't have that to go off of. The venues that they run is pretty much the same thing that Glow did. We're going to set up base here in Las Vegas. The only difference that he got now is that they was in the middle of the street opposed to inside of here's the Canarian Casino, whatever goddamn place that they were when they were Glow. But it's more or less the same thing. Ratings, just talked about those. They're not, well, I don't want to say they're non-existent. I'm sure they exist. But they're not accessible. They're not the thing that you could go and look at them like, oh, they did do 400,000 viewers this week. Like, I would really have a difficult time believing that they have that without seeing it. I cannot positively say that they don't get those numbers. But I also cannot believe that if they were getting those numbers, that they would keep them secret. If they were getting those type of numbers, 300,000 views on the average or better weekly, and it was climbing, I cannot imagine a scenario, period, that they would want to try to keep that hidden. I think they would go out of their way to parade that and boast it to the moon if they had to. And the other thing that, or the last one that I had as a point of why they're the same, and I'm going to just go ahead and put the disclaimer in on this one to say that part of this is built on the fans that attend. Memorable promos, angles, and matches. Now, I don't think that WoW makes any sort of memorable promo. You've had some that snuck through the cracks here in the last couple of months. But generally speaking, it's like they're not noted for strong promos. Not anything that people are going to remember. They don't really have confrontational promos like that for people to get into and remember it. You know, remember it because of this thing that took place in it. Usually, you just got them and they'll say one or two lines, and as good as it may be, is kind of here today, gone tomorrow. You don't really have a great deal of angles that capture people like that. I know WoW, specifically David McClain and Nigel Zane at various points have said that, well, you know, if the storylines in WoW is what make us different. Well, it does, but maybe not in a good way. It's just, you know, their storylines, the angles are really kind of rough. So I don't know, you know, and then you got the matches. Well, you have some good matches there. But tying it back into what my disclaimer, I said, you know, I put some of that on the fans. Those fans don't really help as much as they probably could for television's sake. There's a different energy when you're looking at a wrestling match and those fans are into it. I think anybody that's listening to me right now that's watched wrestling, where regardless of where you saw it from, if it's outside of WoW, whether that be WWE, TNA, you know, AEW, your local indie, When you get an audience that's willing to pay the money, you've already invested your time once you put your money down. I've used the comparison before. Is the difference between going to the Batman stunt show and then or going to a Batman movie. The stunt show, by and large, anytime I've ever come across one, that existed in a park. So it was almost like a take it or leave it proposition. But if you did and you sat there and you watched it, like, it's cool to see it. Like, all right, look at that guy. He just outran this boat. Holy shit. He leaped over the fire. Like, you enjoyed seeing them survive the stunts. You might not care necessarily about the story. There's a story there, but you might not necessarily get all in depth in the story because the story is secondary. So, there's nothing memorable beyond whatever stunt that he happens to do. Whereas you look at the movie, you can get emotionally connected because now you're going through the journey with this character. You get to see and hear all of the stuff that he's feeling, opposed to just having it run through in the stunt show segment. And that's what these matches are as it relates to some of those fans. I do believe that they enjoy watching it. I absolutely believe that. But I also think that in the course of them enjoying it, they don't get emotionally connected to it. I don't think that they, in some cases, know who these people are for them to get emotionally connected. I think they're just like, let's watch this. It's here. All of those things I just named, star power, ticket sales, views online, views on pay-per-view and PLEs, venues runs, ratings, memorable promos, angles, and matches. Almost all of those are the same thing that Glow did. With the exception of views online. Because like I said, there were no views online for them to have. But how they operate has not really changed. And Glow is treated like just a sitcom. We're going to record this many episodes and then we'll, put that on for the air. Even though wrestling is not generally like that. But that's what was happening. All of that to say, as much of as they have grown, and let's call a spade, in terms of in-ring talent, WoW has grown. I don't know if I would go so far with their creative, but in the ring, sure, they're fine, but that also leads to problems that they cannot control the creative. They can't make those things take place. They can't force the creative team to write something better for them. It does come across like WoW is Glow 2.0. With the argument that he's making, Piano Dash Rough, I can appreciate the argument. I don't know if I agree with the argument. As the people that he used as a noted point of, well, look at what they did, I cannot see that they've gotten that based on their time in a WoW ring. And we'll leave it at that. Because I know I've covered quite a bit of stuff there. Holy smokes. Whew. All right. So, this is the time where we get to take the break. And when we come back, we're going to go right off into review. So, let's get our break in. Let's get some promos. Let's get a musical interlude. And then we will turn back around and it will be time for the full review of this week's or last week's episode of WoW. Stay tuned.
Danny Moe, Adina Steele, Aaliyah James, Layla Hirsch, Harleen Lopez, Zoe Cannon, Stevie Brooks, Sazzy, Mercy, Jem. And now who does your PPW Women's Champion get to go up against? Valerie Verman, who just recently announced she's quitting wrestling. April 18th will be Valerie Verman's last match. I say, why wait? Why not March 14th at A Dream of Spring? In all seriousness, Val, thank you for your contributions to the wrestling community, and best of luck on all your future endeavors.
Billy Starks. Space Jesus, is it? Or is it another AEW name that I'm supposed to be afraid of, that I'm supposed to respect? But I've been there. I've been in the ring with Chris Statlander, Queen Amanada, and I ripped their heads off her. So what makes you think you're going to be any different, Billy? If anything, this is my big farewell before I go off to Japan. And I can't think of any better way to send me off than to introduce you to violence!
And we are back. This episode of WoW is episode 425, season 4, episode 25. The title, The Ban is Broken. The air date, March the 28th. The chronological number, 181. And this show begins with a recap of the match between Ashley Blaze and Tara Strike, taking on Miami Sweet Heat in the non-title, I guess, number one contenders match. Would it be considered number one? I guess number one contenders for Strike and Blaze. So we get a little recap of that and how they succeeded in their previous week. We get the show opened with the revised WoW theme, which is basically like, I guess either they just took the chorus off of the existing song that I hated before, or somebody was lazy and just didn't write anything and just wrote it down over a good dump. I don't know. It's just wow. So there you have it. Lyrical gold. Next segment, and I guess we'll say the official start of the show. Ashley Blaze and Tara Strike come back to their vandalized, and I use that term very loosely, locker room. And they assumed that it was Miami Sweet Heat that must have done it because it said losers and it was painted in pink. And that is all the evidence that we need. So let's start with this segment here. First off, I guess I should put the disclaimer before I go into the entirety of reviewing this particular episode. The matches, fine. I enjoyed the matches. To be quite honest, it's all the stuff around it, and sometimes during it when you're talking about commentary, but it's all the stuff around it. I don't know what it was this week because I have been doing fine with WoW for the last 2 to 3 weeks. But for some reason, like this show, this particular episode or the antics thereof, like every once in a while it just grated me the wrong way. I was like, what is this? Why are they doing this? And it started with this because I was like, this, the vandalism. Now, keep in mind that the graphic or the caption, whatever, lower third, that they put up on the screen was moments later or something like, basically implying that this took place a few moments after their match. Which would then lead me to believe, like, well, how fast are Miami Sweet Heat that they accomplished this in a few moments after their match? Because, even though it's not a spectacular job of vandalism, they did have to find a wall or a piece of sectional that they could get up, walk into this locker room, lay on the lockers, and leave. Well, not just do that. Get a piece of sectional, spray paint said piece of sectional to say losers, carry it into the locker room, lay it on the lockers, open up each and every last locker that they have next to them. The rest of the stuff they can do pretty quickly. Knock over this, knock over a couple of towels, kick over a trash can, whatever. But the first 2 acts alone, I'm like, okay, well, that would take a little bit of time. So I don't know if they would be able to pull that off, but let's just go with the narrative that they could. That they had several minutes while Blaze and Strike were just goofing off in the ring or waving to people or what have you. So they come in and they see this, and Blaze like, who did this? Tara Strike looks down and sees the can of spray paint conveniently covered up so we don't see any brand names on it. You know who did this. We're going to go return this back to who it came from, whatever the fuck. All right, so they get in this tiff about the locker room. First off, isn't that a public area locker room? Is it supposed to be theirs? Secondly, what idiot decided to go and get a piece of wall and spray paint that and then lean that up against the lockers? This is one of the most considerate jobs of vandalism that I've ever seen. I mean, how long would it really take you to clean this up? Move this wall out here, close these lockers, and pick up the towels and throw them into the dirty towel bin. You're done. They didn't have like anything else in there. I suggested previously, like, look, if you're going to vandalize something, vandalize it. Taking this out of the kayfabe universe a while, let's just talk to production and setting the scene. Go down the hall, get me 2 or 3 used trash cans, and throw that crap all over this room. We will then shoot the scene with said crap thrown all over this room. Get me a bag that I can say belongs to you, and we'll just dump some soda in it or something, so it can look like it's been vandalized. This just looked weak. I mean, really, it just looked weak. I could not look at this and be like, oh my God, how horrible. This looked terribly weak. Like all of this stuff, when they try to set scenes, it just looks terribly weak. Remember when the Swag and her mom had to go clean up the mansion, like this already clean mansion? I don't know what it is, or I was like, you can't dirty it up just a little bit? You got a billionaire paying for you. I'm pretty sure they can pick up the tab, or you can work it into your budget. Or at the very least, hey, look, we got some interns. After we go down there, get these trash cans, throw it all over this room, we'll shoot the scene. You guys got 3 hours to clean this up. And we'll pay you when you're done, but make sure this is clean. That's part of the show. This is the job that you took. So I don't know what that was about, or why they just refused to go the extra mile. When you have to take a wall from another area, obviously a wall from another area, and put it up there just so it can try to look like it's been vandalized, then something's wrong. Just spray paint that goddamn wall and be done with it, and get somebody to clean it up afterwards. Get a nice paint that you know that you can clean off and move on. But rather than to do that, they did this nonsense. And that upsets me just on a production standpoint. I was like, why would you waste airtime shooting this? So anyhow, they decide that they're going to go confront the Fab Four, Miami Sweet Heat specifically, I guess. Next segment, the Brat Pack versus the Mighty Mites. Zane and McClain start off recapping the show's open. McClain says that they're getting interrupted. I'm like, how are they getting interrupted? This is part of the show. What's the interruption here? The match that's scheduled to come up? Okay. So we start this thing, and then we get towards the good old, hey, come sit next to me portion of the show. Arianna Gambino goes to sit next to David McClain. Like, why are we doing this again? We just got out of this. Now, she was good on commentary. Give her that. I'm just hoping that this has not become a thing all over again. That's what drove me crazy about the other Gambino. She couldn't go out there and be a manager. She always had to go out there and just sit next to David. Like, hey, okay. For what? Why? But I mean, look, we'll accept it in this instance because it hasn't been overdone yet. With Arianna Gambino, that's all she did. She came out there and she sat down next to Dave McClain and never bothered to manage the people that she had. That should have been every reason that they booted her out of there and got the younger sister. But anyhow, I digress. So she goes and sits next to David. And Gambino's, well, this is after the Brat Pack comes out. And you got the Brat Pack waiting in the ring as the mites come. And Gambino pretty much says what everybody's been saying about the Mighty Mites for years is ketchup and mustard. It is the one universal line that I've heard, independent of anybody else, regardless of who it was, when they see them in those outfits, in the red and the yellow. But they're supposed to be ketchup and mustard. It's been different variations of the same thing, but I swear I've kept seeing this or hearing it over and over and over again. Gambino finally said what everybody else has said. It's ketchup and mustard. Of course, Dave McClain defended this. I like the costumes or whatever. And a lot of people like ketchup and mustard. I'm like, okay. Well, yes, a lot of people do like ketchup and mustard. That's not relative to their outfits, but anyhow. McClain and Zane brought up that this feud goes back a number of years. I said, what feud? What was this? When? And I like both teams. And I've openly pitched. I'm like, you know what? They need to be working with each other. They are custom made to be working with each other. This is not something new that I've said. That this is an old thing. I said that at this point probably years ago. The whole Brat Pack mites thing, they had some matches, true. But at what point did they have a feud? I mean, honestly. I get that he's trying to sell the idea that there's something more to this than just a cold match. But I've got news for you. This entire show, this entire episode is nothing but cold matches, regardless of what they tried to say about it. It's like they tried to heat it up somehow for the viewing audience, but like there's nothing to heat up here. You've never heard either one of them, the Brat Pack or the Mites. I don't even know if they made mention of each other in any given promo. Like, what for them qualifies as a feud? How is this a feud? And don't get me wrong, this is not some sort of indictment to how well they worked. As I said, I have pushed openly that they should be working with each other. But I also push for them to be working with each other inside of a rivalry, inside of a feud, inside some personal issue that would make them want to wrestle out against each other. This was just a match. And when was the last time that they had a match with each other? What's been over a year or so? Maybe they had one. Well, I'm sure they had one in sort of a six or trios, what they like to call it. But still, at what point, at any time, since WoW has been on the air, would you look at these two teams and say they had some sort of rivalry or feud? A feud of what and over what? Because it hadn't been anything personal. Neither teams have had a championship or even led to a championship. They ain't even wrestled over the fact that, well, I'm the better team. Well, no, we're the better team. They haven't even wrestled over that. So what is it that they're supposed to be feuding about? It just came off like a line that he just said that there's no evidence of. The match is fun and enjoyable. This is one of those cases of, I think the match would suffer by the audience that it's in front of. All due respect to the people that attended. But I get the impression that they do not have a connection to this one way or the other. It just looked like a bunch of people that just standing around watching something take place in front of their face. Like, oh, that looks cool. But it didn't necessarily seem like they had any investment one way or the other in terms of, well, the Brat Pack has to win because, I don't like the Mites, or the Mites need to win because the Brat Pack sucks. It just didn't feel like they had any of that. they applauded, and you heard some people chant, and I do think that was probably coached in. But they and I would go so far as to say that some people probably very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed the match, but I just don't think that audience gave what they could have given to the energy of the match. Now, that's not their job to do that, but it helps. Especially when people are into it, it helps. But here, that it felt like the teams were working upstream. They did a fine job here. Fine job. And I would probably say, if you have to watch the match, turn the volume down. But other than that, I mean, they did a fine job. I don't know if it's the best of them, but if it was like the start of a rivalry, if it was the start of a feud, if it was the start of them having a series of matches, then, this would be a good starting point. They're probably they being the Brat Pack, Rhythm, and Gianni, they're probably the best team to be able to get in there with the Mites and not look like they're overpowering them, but just out of sheer height can work with them and help, work their style and not look like, how they pulling this off. They're too tiny. But at the same time, they are still taller than them, just not by some ridiculous amount. So, they're still they can take advantage of the size or the height or the strength, and you can still tell that story. But it's not going to come across as lopsided as, say, the Mites in there with Animal Instinct. Those young ladies are comparatively pretty tall. And whereas they might be able to have a decent match out of them, I do believe that the Brat Pack are probably capable of having a better match out of the Mites. And vice versa. This was, as I said, as much as I like them, and I do like all four participants of the match. As much as I like them, this was cold. I mean, I'd call it for what it is. It's just nothing really attached to it. Doesn't necessarily have to be. It's just when he brings up that this was this feud goes back a number of years, I'm like, I don't think so. So I don't know. Getting towards the end, Sanchez helped get the victory. Now, this is one of the other things that gives Gambino a pass in this, and I still do not want her to go out there every week or every time she has a match and have to sit down next to Dave McClain. That I don't want, because it's just going to make her into Arianna Gambino if she starts doing that. But there was a Sylvia Sanchez there. There was still a second. Now, I don't know what it is, because Dave McClain seemed to have had it out for the Alliance overall. I mean, we've seen him get kicked out just for showing up. They walked out the ring and said, like, all right, y'all got to go. Well, that happened like twice. Meanwhile, everybody else under the sun could just cheat right in front of his face. Holy cow, she just hit her in the head with this, and he won't do anything about it. Well, here there's another one of those cases of my powers do not work to intervene. Sanchez gets up on the apron as Rhythm is distracting the referee. This is coming off of a power slam, and I say power by spite, not that she performed the physical act of power slam. It's just that she was able to hoist BK Rhythm up and really spike her down on that mat, and it looked like it took every bit of strength that she had. And Rhythm sold that thing too. Just writhing around in pain, on the mat. But then, Spice is going up to the top rope to get ready to do who knows what. But as Rhythm gets up and strikes the referee, Sanchez runs around. She pushes Spice off of the top rope. That puts her down. Sugar was already on the floor, and once Gianni got into the ring, then it became Sanchez's job to block Sugar. Boy, that sounds like a diabetic drug or something. Block Sugar. Anyhow, so she blocks her on the outside. Meanwhile, Spice is on the inside, and she gets hit with whatever they call their finish. It's essentially a neckbreaker power slam combo. And the Brat Pack win. Hooray. And surprisingly, McLean didn't do anything about it, didn't kick anybody out, didn't reverse the decision. I mean, I was certain that he must have some sort of vendetta against the Alliance. Like I said, they seem to be the only ones that he has any sort of need to break out the old wild justice. You can't do that. That's unfair. I'm kicking you out. Like they're the only ones that seem to get that treatment. But the loveliest Sylvia Sanchez became a difference maker there, helping out the PYTG, Gigi Gianni, and White Chocolate BK Rhythm secure their win. Good for them. Personally, I would have liked to have had a faster pace, but I was fine with this match. And honestly, you turned that volume down, you're pretty much good to go. I still believe that they have chemistry. I believe in those two teams. It wasn't bad at all. It was a good starting point if they were going to keep it going. The question is, will they keep it going? Will this become a feud? I doubt it. I hope that it does. I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt it. But no, when they get to the point where they actually have some sort of personal issue or something that they can feud over, then I would be fine with them. But, I mean, I just don't see that. I mean, just think about the great rivalries and feuds that you've seen over the years and what it was built off of. Or, Midnight Express and Rock and Roll, Taz and Sabu, Flair and Hogan, Austin and Rock. I mean, most of those are built off of here's these two top things, and they've collided. Or it's become very personal in the case of Taz and Sabu, calling man out for a year. That was personal. Austin and Rock, hey, look at the two top recognized guys in the business, and they're fighting for this spot. There's only one spot at the top. And on and on and on and on. I mean, you can go down the line of various feuds and rivalries. I'm certainly not going to say that they cannot do it. Of course they can. I just don't believe they've done it yet the way that he illustrated. It also feels like Zayn is reverting back to overusing David. Like it's not as nearly as bad as it was at his height, but it does feel like he's starting to ramp back up with that again. Like, yeah, David, and we're going to do this, David, and that, David. It just sounds like it's starting to ease his way back in there. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is that I'm wrong. The next segment, Ashley Blaze and Tara Strike barge into the Fab Four locker room. It's amazing that they had this, private locker room no matter where they go. I mean, I would have long believed that being the tag team champions in WoW didn't mean jack shit. I mean, if I'm just going off of the record there. All right, with the mother truckers, Holly Swag pretty much said that I wasn't getting any money. I wasn't. This is on their promo. I'm not talking about some shoot interview somewhere. It was like I wasn't living the life that I was supposed to be living. So she implied that even as the tag team champion, she didn't get any money. You got the mother truckers busting into Animal Instincts like, wow, they got a better locker room than us. So again, implies that being the tag team champion didn't do anything for him. Kara Kai, who apparently could care less about the tag team title. She was off getting coffee. All these things pretty much tell me that the tag team titles outside of Miami Sweet Heat have them mean very little. But anyhow, that's not the story here. The story is that Blaze and Strike barge into the Fab Four room, and they do barge in there. And they accuse them of vandalizing their locker room. And I wrote down the same thing I said earlier. Isn't that in their locker room like used for the general public that's there? And it's all based on the pink spray paint and the word loser being used. And not for nothing, but Blaze and Strike coming there pretty much loud and yelling. And you got Lana on the phone, and I was like, I almost felt for her. She's like, oh my God, y'all just busted here. I am on the phone. And then not only did they barge in telling them to shut up in their own locker room. Am I supposed to root for these two? They're not in the right in this situation. I mean, I know that they're trying to drag out the story and like, who's this? Because when they walk in, they basically toss the can of spray paint in their hands. Like, what are you getting this dust for? This is, like, you did it. It's pretty much they've already come in accusing. And the Fab Fours, Miami Sweet Heat in general, in particular, are saying, what are you talking about? And then they start yelling at Lana, like I said, while she's on the phone, and she had every right to be pissed off. She was on the phone in her locker room. And then these two knuckleheads bust in, yelling. And so Penelope Pink gets up and defends her friend. She basically tells him, man, look, you don't come here yelling like that. And you think I'm paraphrasing now, that they think pretty high of themselves that we would even bother to come in there and vandalize your locker room. You probably just did it just to get attention. And they finish off with like, well, you two are going to have to face us eventually. One day you're going to have to face us. Okay. And so the Fab Four kick him out. Get out of here. As they should have. Like I said, at this point in our little universe of WoW, Tara Strike has not produced any evidence of this. She's just like, we know who did it. Let's go. I guess she is just would not cross her mind that it could be anybody else there. Particularly the two that I guess got shorted out of this. But then it also brings up the questions like, what motivated? We'll just assume Kai and Shore. But what could have possibly motivated them to go that far? I mean, it's a ridiculously bad vandalism job. But assuming that the vandalism that they had in their world was one of the worst things that could have happened, what exactly would motivate Kara Kai and Sandy Shore into doing that? I mean, they had a difference of opinion. Okay, yes. They seem not to be getting along fine. But then it just turns into this. Like, oh, okay. We'll just tear up the locker room. For what? Why? I mean, it just feels like it's kind of jumping the gun for me. And I still will not get over, like, why on earth would Kara Kai back the pony of Sandy Shore? Like, that just comes off like you just put your money down on the wrong horse, sister. But maybe it's a gimmick change. Who knows? But Sandy Shore, as it is right now, I can't see why anybody would have been tagged up with her. She's not been presented as that. So Fast forward, kick him out. And then we get the other half of this this little piece where they show Blaze and Strike clearly posing for the camera while McClain does a voiceover. I was like, why? If there's anything that's going to help me dismiss this as non-important and just absolute bullshit, is that them standing there posing in front of this alleged vandalized area with a can of spray paint. As the camera gets up on them, like, I can't believe this happened in the locker room. Fans, we're going to, like, as we see that, we're watching them just kind of stand around. I was like, what? I know WoW does not care. And I know WoW is like, well, it's just TV. But where are the lines drawn here? Where's the parameters of their reality? It's like 1 week they'll try to be realistic and then they'll do something like this. Because I'm sorry, that wasn't realistic. No one would do that. Anyhow, so they get that and they have their, posing and looking at the camera in slow motion as the camera zooms in on them. The babyfaces in this segment were clearly in the wrong. And I was like, are we supposed to have sympathy for them? Who knows? The next segment's promo for the main event. Reina Del Rey versus Tormenta, and they are already carrying on or suggesting that this is a match that was kind of made out of revenge. I mean, I don't want to paint the wrong picture. They didn't necessarily say revenge, but they did paint the picture of this is a follow-up. That's probably the best way I can put it. Now, I don't agree with it, and yes, the same did bring it up that, well, this was sometime last year he said that. But it also just makes me feel like, well, how important was it? How important was it to Tormenta that she get her revenge or get even with? You would have thought that was the first thing that she was doing. Instead, she went right off into defending the title. Now, I'm also sure that part of that is just because there's already been taped. And those matches had to run. I'm assuming that is, the primary reason that took place. But yeah, I mean, they tried to push this like it was some connective tissue to that match, and I guess theoretically it is. It's just so far removed from it. I mean, we are so far removed from that match. It's like it's hard to care. And not only are we so far removed from it, is the situation hadn't even been talked about, addressed, revamped, rehashed. Nothing. Is just, okay, that happened, and when we get back, they'll fight about it. That's pretty much it. The next segment on the show is a wild promo spot. They've had a couple of these peppered throughout the course of the program, so I'm going to address it, maybe once or twice. But the promo spot is both good and bad. It is edited very well. Looks great. It's a fantastic piece of work. If I was sitting there judging the person that edited it and put it together, I don't know if it's as concise enough to deliver the point. Not like I'm a marketing genius or something like that. No, by no stretch. But it did not give me the impression of buy our stuff until like the last, 10 seconds maybe. I mean, it's like a 40-second commercial that talks about seemingly this is the history of women's wrestling leading into what WoW is now. That's what you walk into this feeling like. You know, they started with this World Championship Wrestling. I mean, of course, they could say it, even though I guess most wrestling fans would think, hey, WCW, why are they mentioning them? But they show some clips. They show a young, of course, you got to have Dave McClain in there somewhere. So they show a young David McClain interviewing Matilda the Hun, I think that who it was from Glow years and years and years back. And then they show, little clips. So it feels like more of a wow campaign to like support this company, support this business, support women's wrestling. That's what the first 3/4 of this felt like. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. And then all of a sudden it's like, buy our shit. And I was like, okay, look, I'm not mad at them for trying to get somebody to buy their stuff, but it just seemed like it just came out of nowhere. It was a little bit of a disjointed spot to me. Like, if they want to sell something, just sell it. You don't have to overdo this. You don't have to make it overly flowery and try to outsmart yourself. Just sell it. Just make a spot to sell the shirts. Let's not combine. That's basically what this is. It's two different spots combined into one. And this is just my personal. I would rather them just split them up. If you're going to do the campaign for people to support WOW as a company, as a show or whatever, leave that spot to where it is and let them address that as this is the WOW campaign. Label it whatever you want. We are WOW. The We Are WOW campaign. We'll call it that. Do the shop stuff on its own. You're trying to sell merchandise. It doesn't need to be buried underneath something else. The point needs to be direct. We have merchandise to buy. Buy our stuff. Just go with that. Because just on the surface of it, I don't know if I would have remembered a single item that was offered that I would be concerned with. Like you vaguely saw a few people's names, but mostly like every other time that they do anything merchandise related, you saw a bunch of WOW related stuff. A WOW thing for your dog, a WOW shirt, a WOW, tote bag, a WOW mug. You see a bunch of those, which still goes back to my whole statement before about wanting to keep everything just even. And now that I think about it, it's like, what did they just give the talent like hey, here's a bunch of T-shirts, here's a bunch of crop tops, here's a bunch of sweatsuits, and anytime you're on TV, wear this or else. So anyhow, it's looks good. Looks like the work was put into it. Appreciate the work that was put into it. I think it's a little disjointed. It's a bipolar spot. It's not focused on one particular thing. It just goes from one and then bam, we're off to the next. All right, so next segment, Genesis with her buddy Drucilla Blade versus Xena Phoenix. This was another cold match, and it was nice. There was nothing behind it. I want to say something about. I wish they had done something with her because of her being Phoenix. She's got a great look. She is fantastic with her execution. She looks like she's trying to win. At one point, it's like, okay, maybe they are going to try to do something, but then it's just turned into, she's just another girl on the roster. Like I said before with her, she's not a great promo. She doesn't seem like she has the content to talk about. And that may just be because of what's going on around her. I don't know. I have been told because of the way that they produce the stuff, they're like they don't always know who it is that they're dealing with, angle-wise, storyline-wise, and what have you. So it may just be a case of her not knowing. But her in-ring work for somebody, that I'm going to guess, maybe a year. And in total time, she's probably less than a year of wrestling at all. But I love her execution. I absolutely love it. But it feels like she's been rendered into just another girl on the roster. Like the window for her to have been special, that window's closed. They could have kept her undefeated. They could have kept her strong. Now, that's not to say that they can't turn it around and she can't win this or she can't. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you only got one chance for that first impression of, all right, this person is going to mow through this roster. She very well may do that later on, but, the precedent's already set. She's already been beaten. So, whatever. So, like I said, this is another cold match. Nothing really behind it. It's just here. Drucilla cheats in front of McClain, and I questioned myself. Okay, now we've already established that Dave McClain can at any given point kick you out, ban you. He'll get up from the desk and do something. Here he was right back to just good old gosh darn it commentary David McClain. I don't have any power. And he sat there calling it. Oh wow, Drucilla's blade just kicked her in the head. Which makes you feel like, okay, what is it that he has against the Alliance? They are the only ones that have suffered his wrath. Somebody in that group turned that dude down. I don't think this is right, David. Oh, yeah, okay, well, fuck you then. We'll make sure that you never win. I'm sorry. I'm sure that didn't happen for real before somebody takes it seriously. He thinks you're cheating, trying to sleep with somebody. Anyhow, let's not open up a can of worms that that I don't want to open. But no, seriously, it's just like why every other heel that's on this show can just do stuff without any repercussions. Drucilla Blade being included in that, and the Alliance by their singular presence didn't lift a finger. Hey, this is unfair. I got to kick them out of here. Y'all better stop telling that man no. All of you better stop telling that man no. Either that or leave. One of the two. Somebody turned me down for a date, a kiss, a night on the town, something. All right. Enough. Okay, so this is the point of the show that I started to notice that Zane is regressing into saying David's name a bit too much again. Please don't let it get back to that. Please don't let it get back to that. I mean, at his worst, and you do not have to just take my word for it. Fortunately, Zantara has been wonderful enough to actually maintain the David counter on these reviews that she writes up. But at his worst, he was averaging saying David's name twice per minute. I figured out the math on one of those days, like the heaviest day that he was like David. And let me tell you, David and David. Like it was like every 30 seconds on the average. I'm not saying that he did it consistently, but on the average, it was about every 30 seconds he mentioned his name. And that could beat you into the ground. Not to say that the commentating was stellar here, but, sometimes I feel for Nigel in this case because it does come across like he's pushing a boulder uphill and trying to make this work as far as the commentating team. McClain is not. I don't know if that's his strongest suit. We'll say that. I understand why he would want to do it because if no one else understands the story, he should. But at the same time, sometimes he comes across like he doesn't understand the story or that he doesn't remember. Or he'll just say some other stuff that's like, what? For instance, let's jump back to the Brat Pack Mighty Mites match. And I will say, hey, go watch that match. You may need to turn the commentary down, but go watch the match. They did a fine job. At the end of that match, he brings up how Spice was pinned, and he's like, yeah, you can see right there, she's pushing the forearm to the face of Sugar and Spice. Like, Sugar and Spice? What? She's not putting a forearm in both of their faces. She's putting the forearm in Spice's face. It ain't two of them in the ring. There's only one. But he'll do stuff like that. And when you're the guy in charge, who's going to sit there and tell you no? Or that, hey, you need to sharpen that up. Who's going to tell him that? He has to be self-aware of it and care enough to try to change it. But as it is right now, it just doesn't come across like that. And this isn't the only time that you've got a moment in there where it's like, what are you doing? But we'll get to that also. I hope I can remind myself because it happens in the main event. Zayn, like I said, at times feels like he's carrying the weight of that. But there's also times where I don't want to say he feels like he's overcompensating, but that's the only way I can really describe it. When I say it feels like he's pushing a boulder uphill, this is just me from something that's been around some other commentators. It's like, I have to make up for whatever McClain lacks. And then he'll overemphasize to sell moves or an angle or a match. It's oh my goodness, when there's something like really minor that's happening in the ring. Or this is a great, fantastic, those things. Sometimes it comes across like overcompensation for the situation and or just the commentary in general. There was a spot where 3 people were wearing Xena Phoenix shirts. I'm pretty sure that was family or friends somewhere. McClain made it like, they started chanting their name before the music even played. I was like, really? They did? Okay, maybe they did. Shit, I don't know. but the only way that they could possibly do that is if they knew who was coming out there and she already had a fan base. And if she had a fan base there, I'm pretty sure there was people that already knew her. And I'll repeat, I like Phoenix. I think that there's potential in there. But I don't know if that potential will be realized in this environment. McClain makes sure to double down on the fact that Drucilla Blade isn't a tag team partner. It's like they have to get it across to you. She's not a partner. That's her friend. She's helping her out. Because she said she didn't need a partner. She didn't need any help, but she did need some help, so she got her. But she's not a tag partner now. That's how it comes across. To justify the stupidity of Genesis. I don't need y'all to, I do all this effort to try to struggle to become the leader of the group. Well, first, effort to take over the group and become his leader. Then solidify the fact that I'm the leader by beating everybody else, and then I just disband the group because I don't need you. But I do need somebody, so I'll call this other person who's half my size to carry swords around that she's never going to be able to use in this pro wrestling ring. And it comes across so evidently when she's standing right next to her. Drucilla Blade next to Genesis looks tiny. I am not against her being ringside, but this Weapon Master shit, that needs to get knocked off. She doesn't come across like they presented her when they started up like, I need the help. I need backup. Somebody that can watch my back and dangerous and blah, 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 blah. That's how it came off. What is being shown is just a mouthy little friend, somebody who would come up and start the fight for you. That's how Drucilla Blade comes off. She didn't come off like the muscle or the heavy or with whoever it is that you would put in that spot by any stretch of the imagination. Not by behavior, not by look, not by the booking, none of it. The spot that she's in, yes, she can do that. But I think they just need to get rid of the swords because, again, where is she ever going to use those? Where is she ever going to use these things? Her being a weapons master has no bearing in this universe. She can't do anything with it. I mean, You wouldn't hire a professional marksman to watch your back in the UFC ring or octagon. Like, what good is without getting arrested? What good is that going to do you here? Now they said I got a professional tough guy, the baddest dude that never lost a fight. This, that, and that. Here's his record. Now that I could see. And in Genesis' case, if she had come across, so let's just say even a bodybuilder, for the sake of this fantasy booking, we'll just say there's a young lady that essentially cosplays as China, and she goes by China Syndrome. And I believe she's in Europe. I don't think that she's a wrestler, although she has dabbled in it to dip her toe and maybe try it. But she's a muscular young lady. Now, I could see, let's say, Jen's like, look, I'm tired of these people not respecting me. I need somebody to watch my back, block, yada, yada, same story. And then she shows up with somebody like her. Now, I would change the outfit, obviously. I was like, I'm not going to get this lawsuit happening there, so we're going to have to change something in there. But just her physical presence, even if she is shorter than her, she's like loaded with muscles. The visual imagery alone changes, the perspective. But anyhow, we've gotten that. We talked about him doubling down on them not being, well, both of them really doubling down on Blade not being a partner. We see Blade interfere, and even when she does that, she just comes off like a bratty friend rather than professional muscle. You kick somebody in the head and run off laughing, and it doesn't, I know, again, this is one of those points when I was like overselling. So what a lethal kick. I'm like, okay, I don't know if it was a kick. I don't know if it was lethal. It's not like it goddamn knocked Xena Phoenix out right there on the spot and the match was over with. But she has like a little annoying kick, like you would if you were a manager. It's not super, it doesn't feel good, but it's not super harmful, and, it's not going to knock the wrestler out. It's just annoying that this person actually did it. That's how she comes across. And they should probably just go ahead with that. Get rid of the blades. There's no reason to carry on about what a weapons master she is. If that is what she's good at, she's in the wrong field. Like, okay, yeah, you're a weapons master and you're here. Way to utilize your talent. Same thing with the alleged genius Samantha Smart. I'm brilliant. And I understand all of this bullshit that's going on in the universe, but I choose to be here at a wrestling play where my genius can really be utilized by doing the same shit that everybody else did in wrestling for the last 100 years. Anyhow, I'm getting off track. Okay, so you got a few people that was chanting, "Let's go, Xena." I guess somebody pumped them up to do that. Who knows? At the end of this, we see Xena apply a armbar to Genesis. This armbar is draped over the top rope. And this is another one of those cases of what is McLean talking about? I think that she would have won the match right there. Okay, now this is where you need heel commentators. So, like, how on earth would she have won the match? She's in the ropes. The ropes are a breaking point. You can't, by the nature of it, get a submission when you're in the ropes. You've already established that here. But it's like Nigel had to go along with it. Well, yeah, well, she might have. No, she wouldn't have. She wouldn't have got the submission. In fact, when you really look at it, Drucilla Blade didn't really have to jump up there in the first place. Referee came over there to break it. Now, I don't know why the ref would go over there and start yammering to Genesis. Genesis was in the hole. Like, what are you talking to me for? Tell her to let me go. Because that's what it's supposed to be. You're in the ropes. The ropes are the border for the ring. If you're there, they don't continue the count or the submission. You're out of bounds, so to speak. But in any case, I mean, look, I have to give the referee credit for this. She did position herself very smoothly to ensure or at least attempt to not see Drucilla Blade. But, I mean, in a real world environment, there's no reason on earth that she wouldn't have been able to see Blade. And that's logical. She got up there before the girl had made it all the way around. The referee had gotten up. Well, it's not gotten up. Blade got up. The referee walks around to go and, I guess, address Xena Phoenix, or attempt to, while she's got her yanking on the arm and hanging over the ropes. I mean, it was a good submission. It looked great. But then, you know, the referee starts carrying on with Genesis, I guess, to see whether or not she's hurt, I assume. While that's happening, Blade just got up, you know, and kicked her in the back. And again, I know she tried, she being the ref, and she tried to get over there to be able to block out the visual of this blatant cheating. But I don't think there's a way in the world that she could have missed that unless her eyesight is only linear. If she's only capable of seeing it in front of her face, then, you know, that would be that. But we get to the end of the match. I don't know if Genesis has really sold the idea of this tornado kick as the finish. Because even though, I know that it's supposed to be, it kind of felt flat to me. But that's to me. I don't know, you know, other people might be anticipating the tornado kick. And when I look at the match in its entirety, I'm not sure that Drucilla Blade's interference did anything for Genesis or not. I mean, it's not like it led to a direct win. You know what I'm saying? It's not like she did that and then through the distraction of being kicked, she get back in the ring, she's got her eyes off of Genesis, and then boom, that was it. It went like another 30 seconds or so. And the win came as a result of Genesis pulls Xena Phoenix's hair to get her off of her, because I guess she was going for the arm bar again. Once she gets her down, she makes her roll through, and then she hits her with a tornado kick. Boom, she's out. 1, 2, 3. So, I mean, annoyance, yes. But she didn't play directly into the victory of Genesis, which again is like, is she the muscle? Is she just the manager? I think we have to go with the latter. She's just the manager. She's just the manager that's walking around with deadly weaponry. The next segment is the promo for the main event. The segment after that is the Sibley Scoles backstage interview segment with Reina Del Rey, and standing by her side, Arianna Gambino. Del Rey gives a short promo. This was kept serious. Scoles looked serious. And I will repeat again, you got to give Sibley some credit too, because apparently she's the only person that was on that roster who had the guts or the concern to actually go looking for Santana Garrett. She might need to be Garrett's tag team partner. He might be the only friend she got. But this was kept serious, and Del Rey essentially is, I want to say, riding off of the previous match, but that's probably the only thing that we can say here. It is referencing, she says, feel like I've done this before. She ends it with something along the lines of, if you walk out of here in one piece, you should consider yourself lucky. It's a great promo to give. Delivers the point. It's like trying to relight some wet logs in the fireplace, though. We're trying to reheat this. And I don't know if it's working. I mean, it's not enough that they had this thing last year, as Zane said, and they're just now getting to it. And this isn't like it's a bump along the way. It's not like they've had 5 or 6 different matches and she's come back to this again now. This is the match. Anyhow, it was nice. And then it goes to a McLean voiceover implying that this is a return of sorts following the shoulder spot several months ago. Like I said, it's like reheating wet wood, trying to get it to light back up and burn. Next segment is a wild spot. Same thing that I said before. We already addressed it. It's not all over the page, but it is like mashing 2 different things together for a selling point that could be simplified. The next segment is the entrance of the combatants of the main event. Reina Del Rey with Arianna, Gambino, and Tormenta as they're walking through, whatever, the casino floors, which I'm pretty sure was pre-taped before we got to where we got. And Gambino goes back to the booth again. I wrote why. It was fine the first time. Why isn't she at ringside now? I will reiterate that I certainly hope that this is not going to become a regular thing. That is just the second that she comes out there, just come sit next to me. If she's going to be the manager, she needs to be the manager and stick with that. Now, there is another thing that's coming up. Oh, boy. This is in relation to her managerial thing. So, anyhow, we'll get to that when we get to that. Well, as a little side note, I know they got to sell some ad spots and get their money through the ad revenue, but that Cap Lighter commercial every break was killing me. I was like, my gosh, that alone made me want to turn the channel. It's like it's the same commercial over and over and over, and I couldn't do it because I was at work. The next segment, in the middle of the main event, before the match starts, is the promo for Top Tier and Monsters and Metal rematch. You knew that it was going to come eventually. And here it is. I would assume and hope that Monsters and Metal would retain, although I would not put it past WoW to just hand them back to the Top Tier just because. Next segment. I'm back from the break. Del Rey jump starts the match. Tormenta was able to turn it around. Zane tries to sell this as a personal issue, which, I guess. Zane has oversold this a couple of times, but, whatever. But the real point in the match that got me, had little to do with the match and more the commentary. When Zane goes through it, he talks about, this happened, such and such, and Del Rey had injured her several months ago, and that's why this match is taking place. That he's so much, in so many words he says that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Now, goddamn, 2 seconds later, Dave McClain's like, well, this is why this match is taking place, is because Del Rey injured her back a couple of months ago. And you hear Zane's like, well, yeah, I was just saying. Look, is McClain not paying attention to what he's saying while he's sitting right next to him? I mean, he literally went right into repeating the exact same thing that Zane was saying. Not word for word, but that's pretty much what he did. And that just make you feel like he might not be listening to him at all. What was that for? This is the moment that I was talking about. It's like, I don't know if commentary is his strong suit. He's a great salesperson and probably really good behind the scenes as an executive producer, getting things done there. I don't know if this is the best thing for him for his show. Now, he has every ability to take himself off, leave himself on. That's his business. But the suggestion would be is to get somebody else to do that. Give Zane a different partner and let somebody else do that. The stronger that commentary team is, the better it's going to be for the show overall. You don't want people that's going to get to the point where, like, I don't want to hear these people talk. And McLean seems to have done things along those lines, a little trip here, a little slip there, more and more often. You're never going to say, like, look, nobody's expecting him to be perfect. There's no commentator that's going to just be flawless. But it's happening more and more with him. I'll just say that. Like, I don't know what the next episode is scheduled to be or whatever, but it would not shock me if I heard something else in there that just completely violates the history of WoW or something along those lines that he does again. Because he does that regularly enough to where I would expect it. Anyhow, despite all of that, the attendees didn't look like they didn't know any of their backstory. So I was like, no, okay. And this match is too little too late. That's the definition of the match. It was fine and enjoyable to watch. It was just too little too late. There's no heat attached to that. It's been months ago. Even the people that are probably interested in it don't have the same feeling about the match that they could have had if it had taken place when Tormenta came back and she was focused and wanting to get even with Reina Del Rey, and the title matches was secondary. I mean, I know they want the WoW Championship to be important, but there are things that are supposed to be more important than just the win or just the championship. I put you in the hospital and I had you on the, theoretically, on the shelf for about 2 months. And you come back and then just like back to work, back to the regular defenses. And only when I lose the title is it important enough for me to even like, well, now I got to get revenge. It feels like such a back burner thing. But this also is the problem that you get when you take months and months and months of TV in advance. You don't have room to wiggle. You don't have any way to be able to pivot. But yeah, this match is too little too late. So anyhow, at some point, Tormenta applies a submission on Del Rey, and McLean asks, is she waving that off? And I wrote, when did waving something off constitute I quit? I was like, what is he talking about? The tap, we've all established that constitutes submission, which in a perfect environment would only apply if that person could not speak. I mean, there's no reason for you to tap out in a figure 4 leg lock. You can say, I quit. I mean, it worked for decades. I don't know why all of a sudden it's like everybody had to. I know they like the visual of the tap out. But both of them can work. Anyhow. Yeah, I don't know at what point did that become a thing. Is he waving that off? I didn't even understand what he was talking about. But long story short, Tormenta gets Del Rey at the top rope drop kick, and boom! She gets 1, 2, 3. Revenge. Assumably. After the match, Ms. Gambino decided to get up from the commentary table and run around the ring and try to attack Tormenta from behind. Tormenta turns around in the nick of time and she sees her. For a moment, Gambino plays the part of being the manager, like, hey, whoa, don't hurt, don't hurt me. But then she stops and yells for help. She's like, come on, So she waves the rest of the Alliance members, Gianni, Rhythm, and Sanchez down to ringside to help her beat up Tormenta. Now, why Tormenta just stood there and watched this take place, I don't know. This is why I said, if there was such a thing as the last couple of seconds of a show just ruining the show and previous shows in front of it, this would be the definition of that. Like, this one thing here just drove me absolutely crazy. I'm like, really? Really? So you get her calling for help. Tormenta basically stands around and watches them call for help, or watches her call for help. I could have seen if, say, Tormenta turns around, she grabs Gambino by the collar and she backs her into the corner to where her back is facing the entryway. She can't see them being, running down the ringside. But, of course, if their boss is threatened, they're going to run out. They don't need to be told to do it. Like that, I could understand. That I could see. Here, it just is like I have to ignore the fact that I can blatantly see you calling for help in front of my face. I don't know. So you got that, and then Sanchez, Rhythm, Gianni, they all come down, and in order to aid their boss, their manager, the leader of the Alliance, they all grab Tormenta's arms, two on each side, prepare to beat her up. And so disturbing is this that David McClain gets up, gets on the microphone that feeds the house, and personally calls for help. We need help out here. We need help. And then running in from the back, you got a crew of, who was I should have wrote it down. I didn't write the thing down. Who was it? BK, not BK, what am I saying? She's already out there. Lil J Boogie, Cruz, Rush. I believe that was it. I'd have to go back and check. I wish I had it, but I honestly was like so. I was so turned off with this that I stopped writing my notes. Seriously, this just bothered me so badly that I just stopped writing. Like, what? How many different ways are you going to show that you can do stuff at any given chance and time that you can do it, except when you don't feel like it? And it's only this one group. It's only the Alliance. That's what those two things right there alone just bother me. It's like, what did the Alliance do to him? And I kid and I joke and I say, okay, well, somebody must have turned him down, but goddamn, you think out the wild, it's like, but maybe somebody did turn him down. Maybe somebody on that team did do something that just upset him, or he doesn't like them personally, and just decided that I'm going to make them just the bottom rung team. Because for what reason did this beating that Tormenta took? They all come in and they all start kicking her and whatnot. That constituted yelling and screaming for help. But Santana Garrett being kidnapped did not. Is it just me? It's this lack of consistency that just drives me ape shit with this show. is every reason I say he should not be sitting out there at ringside. He violates the rules of his own universe. Because we've seen that he can do this at any given point. He's shown it multiple times. That when I feel like doing something, I can use my in-universe, wild, godlike powers and will it away. If that's what I choose to do. I just don't choose to do that. So either Santana Garrett is not important enough to be saved, despite the fact that it's like, oh yeah, me and David and Wild, man, we were all so concerned about you. If I'm Santana Garrett and I see that you were so concerned that you sent somebody out to Tormenta within 5 seconds of her getting beat up, but you couldn't do anything for me, and they weren't even rushing. They didn't even move fast to try to get up out of there. They weren't rushing. They were moving as slowly and deliberately as they possibly could. They gave people time to run out there and do something. Nothing. But here, oh no, we can't allow Tormenta to get beat up. Or if it's not Tormenta, maybe it's just what I said previously. Maybe it's just the Alliance. Maybe the Alliance is the magnet of his wrath. Because it always comes towards them. And okay, now I remember who it was. Sugar Spice, the Mites, Boogie and Cruz. So you got basically your two tag teams that came out there to save the day. And they had a little in-ring brawl. I cannot knock the participants that took place in this show for the various parts that they had. I cannot knock them. They did what they were asked to do. But come on, man. Come on. Even you have to admit that that is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Unless you can justify why one person on there gets personal favor or treatment from the guy that's running the show opposed to another. That would be the only other way. I was like, you have to justify that somehow. But here you are. You've got this thing, and through his words, we need help. If they had ran out on their own, this would not be an issue. If they just decided to help their friend, if they just got up on their own power, like, hey, Tormenta's in trouble. We need to get out there. Now, I still would say something bad about Garrett because nobody bothered with her. But at least it would keep David McClain in the clear. But this right here puts him right in the line of fire. So they come out and they get into a brawl with everybody that's out here. The only issue that the brawl presented to me is Gambino should not have been a part of it at all. Yes, she was the first person out of it when they started throwing people out of the ring. But she shouldn't have been a part of that at all. She's the manager. She's not supposed to be tough. Yet she was willing to stand there and fight with, whoever it was that I think it was one of the mites that ran up on her. She was willing to throw a few punches at her right then and there. Why were you willing to fight then, but you weren't willing to fight Tormenta? I think that Gambino has to pick a lane and stick with it. Either she's going to be the wrestler that just happens to own a group, I guess, or she's going to be the manager. But she doesn't need to do both. And that was the episode. Like I say, that is the easiest way I can describe what it was. Is like if it were possible that the last minute of a show could not only ruin that episode, but ruin like 3 other episodes in front of it, this would be the one. This would be the example that I would use, because like it is this flipping back and forth of rules of logic wouldn't fly in any other TV show anywhere. And you know that. It's not like he was looking at Walking Dead and they established these rules in one episode and 3 of them later it's like, oh no, you can reverse the process. So, that's because you're bit. Doesn't mean you're going to turn into a zombie. You have to find this cure, blah, 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 blah. And then 2 more episodes later, no, the zombie curse is irreversible. I know they never use zombie. They say walkers. But you get what I'm saying. It's not like these shows just flip their own rules. WoW flips his rules to whatever's convenient at the time. And this was just convenient. One more time, he either should be the general manager that's in the back that comes out when things are important. That it would give some gravitas to his presence. When he's coming out there's a big decision to be made. He should either be that guy or he should be the person that's at the commentating booth that's given up willingly my decision-making abilities and power while I'm sitting here in the commentating booth. And that belongs to so-and-so in the back. Because trying to balance it doesn't work. Trying to balance both of those, be both of those things, wear both of those hats, it doesn't work. The first time I said that, I also acknowledged the ideas like, now he's never going to give that up. I understand that. I know that. You know that. He is never going to give that up. I think it should be given up, but it's never going to happen. Never. Anyhow, now by the time you hear this, the episode of WoW that is going to be spoken of likely would have already aired. But I haven't seen it as I'm recording this. And I want to see what it is that they've sent this week. So, the preview for the upcoming episode of WoW, so 426, titled Revenge of the Tier. The IQ superior Samantha Smart's former WoW world champion, the Classmaster, is facing veteran Kalaki, the Island Girl, with the Enlightened at ringside. I wonder if they'll get kicked out. Anyway, also in action, the Exterminator, Sylvia Sanchez, backed by the Alliance, is ready to exterminate Scout Parker. Can Scout hold her ground against the Powerhouse family? And in the main event, after dominating the division for so long, Top Tier attempts to muscle their way back to Trios glory. In the WoW World Trios Championship rematch, Monsters and Metal defend their titles for the first time against their bitter rivals, Top Tier, for control of the Trios division. That's right. For control of the entire division. Whomever that may happen to be. I guess there's one other team there. This could be an interesting show. Off the top of my head, the one that I'm interested in seeing is Sanchez versus Scout Parker. Like, I have more of an interest in that than probably any other match that's been talked up. Just to see if Scout's going to continue to grow. Is she going to get another win? But at the same time, Sanchez has started to come off as an MVP on the shows. Like she's becoming the most valuable player. She's always there. She's helping out the Alliance ringside. She's shown more personality, not necessarily in doing a promo, but she's way more expressive than she was. She's, like I said before, she had a bit of an ice woman thing, a stone face when she didn't express very much, but now she's expressive. She's part of the group. She looks like she's having a good time. She's getting more matches and higher profile, or at least she's, kind of upper mid card to possible main event. Yeah, I find that more interesting than, I mean, look, the Monsters and Metal top tier thing probably be fine. An enjoyable match. I'm sure that they're going to go out of their way to hit a slew of triple level moves. And it will be very entertaining to watch them do it. But, I mean, the match itself would probably have to start to take place to draw me in. Like, I don't know if I'm there yet just on the name value of top tier versus Monsters and Metal. And I fully expect Kalaka the Island Girl to lose to the Classmaster, and I expect her to be slow, and, you know, when she tries to apply something, get conked or hit in the head with a book or something and then lose. Now, I don't have any prior knowledge, so if that takes place, this is not me saying that I saw it. I'm just guessing. I don't want anybody to be like, "Why'd you give it out sport?" No, I haven't seen them. Just saying stuff off the top of my head. And that'll be that. So now we've gotten through these episodes. Yay. All I can say is I will tune into the next one. I'll be there, so it's going to be in the room at some point tonight. I won't have a choice. And I don't think we got any more games that I'm aware of that will distract me from being able to see the episodes. So we might be getting back on that train to Wildville and tuning in on a weekly basis as we did before. On that note, I want to thank you for your time and your ears of tuning in, listening to this podcast, and me have my little moments, rant. It always, gives me a nice little venue to blow off some steam, and I appreciate you allowing me to do that. If you have not done so, you do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe. You can always check out the audio version of the podcast. It is available on greater podcast platforms everywhere. If you need to find a central hub of said items, you can always go to WPNWrestling.com. That is a focal point and centerpiece for all the things that get dropped. Matches going back to 2013 on a constant stream. It's going on right now as I speak. It's still showing matches and interviews and people and faces that you know that have gone to greater heights, off of the indies to AEW, TNA, MLW, WWE, and yes, WoW is included in that. You can also scroll down to our little podcast widget. A bunch of podcast episodes that were all listed there. I mean, just scrolling through it is, even for me, is impressive. Like, I can't believe I did all this stuff. But it's there and ready for you to listen to it at any given point. And so on that note, folks, thanks again. I appreciate your time. Find me next week, and we will see how this latest episode of WoW turned out. Until then, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.